pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The only announcement we have this morning is the next regular meeting is scheduled for Friday, June 24th, 9 a.m., and that is, I believe, here at the clubhouse again, isn't it?
We'll be here, yes, sir.
And we'll be here for most of the summer?
I hope to be back in July.
Before we get started, I regretfully want to acknowledge that this is Jane Fry's last day with us, and I do so with a lot of regret because I think ever since you first came, you've been a real pleasant experience for those of us on the board and also in the community, and it's very rare in Sun and Lake when you hear nothing but positive things about a person over time. So I think it's very much to your credit, and I just hope that your replacement will have the same sense of public service that you have. And I do want to wish you well in your new job in Lakeland, and I think for all of us, we're certainly going to miss having you here.
Thank you.
Jane is going to help us at the end of the month with our minutes and some other things, so this may not be the last time you see her, but this may be the last meeting.
Well, I guess I consider that a mixed bag, don't I? Before we get into the consent agenda, Mike, I noticed that all the reports, with the exception of John, believe it or not, all the reports are April reports, and we're now the 10th of June.
Right.
And it seems to me that we could be a little bit more compact in terms of our reporting. Is there a problem that we have?
Well, you got to remember, these agendas go out around June 2nd, June 3rd. And we canceled the May 20, we canceled the second meeting.
What does that have to do with all the reporting process? For example,
financials are not complete by the 2nd or 3rd of June.
Well, certainly the security report, the code enforcement report, Christie's report, all those are not that hard to put together.
Okay, we'll be a little more sensitive to it in the future.
Please. Okay, I need a motion for the approval of the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Second. Any comment? Jane, would you call the roll, please?
Supervisor Guglielmi?
Yes.
Supervisor Ganjani?
Yes.
Supervisor Haldick?
Yes.
And President Miller?
Yes. First item on the action agenda is Resolution 1120, and that's a resolution of the Sun Lake Sebring Improvement District amending the fiscal year 2011 budget related to operations. Do I have a motion for approval? Motion to approve. Second. Mike, do you want to walk us through this?
Actually, Ms. Kennedy's going to do that.
Okay, very good.
Good morning. Is on? Yes. Okay. I am proposing budget amendments for 3 of our funds. The first one being the golf clubhouse capital projects, the second being the recreation capital projects, and the third being general fund. The first budget amendment and for golf clubhouse capital projects is to create a budget. These capital project funds were not, no budget was created during the adoption process last summer. So this is my amendment to create We have recreation assessments for $116,000 that we're going to budget in this fund, and that is to pay for the principal and interest costs related to the internal loans. And the second, moving on to recreational capital projects, I've created a budget here for the recreation assessment revenues in the amount of $67,250, and also revenues related to the PERDAP grants. As you remember, the Sun and Lake, we received grant monies to build the recreation complex. So this is basically to create budget reflecting those revenues that we have already received and the expenditures relating to the principal and interest costs for the internal loan. Any questions regarding those two funds?
Not regarding roads, but
Okay.
Later on in the program, I want to talk to you about the utility fund revenues.
Okay.
That'll be later.
Okay.
This doesn't affect our cash flow, our reserves, or...
No, sir, not at all. No. All it is creating budget for these two funds, because remember, originally there was no budget created, and you don't have to create budget for your capital project funds, but I feel it's necessary since we are going to be starting these capital projects and to recognize the revenue here. So I feel like it's necessary to create budget for these funds so we can see and track what's happening there. So.
Any questions or comments from the board?
I think this is something that has probably been long overdue, and I must compliment you on how you've got this laid out. It's very clear, it's very concise, and very easy to read. I thank you for that.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to the general fund. Again, for the general fund revenues, I've created budget for revenue centers that that was not adopted in the original budget process. Those four revenue areas are the community center fees, pool memberships, federal grants. If you remember, we received I think it was a forestry grant related to the tree project. That was $15,200, and we finally received our last, our only reimbursement from the FEMA related to Hurricane Charlie. So those monies finally came in the amount of $4,074. So essentially what I'm doing here is creating budget for those revenue centers that we've received monies. And that's the amount of $47,074. Okay, moving on to general fund expenses. In the administrative area, I created a new budget item for the supervisor salary and wages. So essentially all I did was move the supervisor wages out of salary and wages where it's combined with other employees. So I just created a new line item for that so we could see that. Also in the general administrative area, our sunshine staffing costs were higher than anticipated, and the employee that we were paying for under sunshine staffing we have now hired, and so those costs were higher than anticipated. And third, in the general administrative, we had to purchase a new firebox, and that firebox is our protection against any internet issues, protection against websites, protection against viruses. So that was something that was not anticipated in the original budget process. Any questions about that?
Well, I notice you have most of your departments summed at the bottom, but some you don't. Is there a reason for that? Recreation services is one.
Recreation services continues to the next page. I apologize. I guess it wouldn't fit all on that page, so it continues to the
There
next
it
page.
is. I see it.
You see it on the next page
Thank
there.
you.
And next time what I can do is just do one page per department. I was just trying to save paper, but I can do that, one page per department.
Okay, do we have any questions on this item?
Tanya, who is the new employee we hired?
That is Juan.
Okay.
how do you pronounce his last name? Guerrero, thank you.
Okay.
So we did hire him under Sunshine, well, we used him under Sunshine staff, but we ended up hiring as a full, he is full-time, part-time still,
Part-time.
right? So, okay.
That's a good choice.
He's part-time for what reason?
To assist with the administrative workload we have. We're down one employee, I believe, in the administrative area, and he's having to fill in there. He's a position that helps with Christy, helps with Jane. In fact, he's Jane's backup, and generally kind of a roving type person, part-time.
Is he going to school?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to recreation services. We have had higher electricity costs and fuel costs related to the pool, so I've adjusted the budget accordingly. The recreation services budget has increased by $24,000 regarding those costs.
Mike, have we done anything regarding the pros and cons of solar
Actually,
application?
we pulled together the preliminary information. Ms. Wolf and I are going to visit 3 local pools that have installed solar, talk to them direct. These are commercial pools, not residential pools. And we'll have your report, probably part of the budget process.
Thank you.
One thing about the electricity, I think, yes, you can see it. I think if you look over at the bridge, go beyond the bridge, you've got a light on there, a post light. That light is on 24 hours a day. I think Mr. O'Neill has brought that to the district's attention before. And is it a sensor that's gone or a switch that has been turned on?
It's a progress light. We pay a fixed amount for them. We'll tell them they can solve.
Okay, thanks.
Rusty, what's going on?
We need a hearing device.
The hearing devices don't work off this PA. You need to set up closer to the PA. You can probably hear it.
Is that the sign language you were putting up back there? I'm sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
Moving on to public safety. And I apologize, y'all cannot see the page numbers on your screens there, can you? I apologize, but if you can scroll down to public safety, I've amended the budget in the amount of $4,599, which relates to the resolution where the board agreed to increase the fees to federal security response. So that's the budget amendment. That increases our budget for security services to $144,375. Moving on to buildings and grounds. This budget, in looking at it, I'd like to start with the Kitson reimbursement. I've adjusted the Kitson reimbursement to $67,299, which agrees to the golf course budget. That amount is what we anticipate that Kitson will bill us for grounds maintenance, and I want our budget to reflect the same as what's in the golf course budget. And also, we've had larger than anticipated costs in repairs and maintenance. As you recall, this department, the budget was cut by $290,000 within 1 year. Now, I know some of that was moved to a new department called Recreation Services, but this department has taken a hit. I did create budget for electricity costs. We didn't have budget adopted with the original budget for those costs. So, if y'all have any questions about this, I do have details behind this if we need to talk about it more in depth. But again, this budget, as far as the the cut that it took within 1 year, the costs have been higher than anticipated. Any questions? And that's it for general fund. With all of that, we have reduced our contingency by $3,419, which our total reserve for contingency is now $162,883.
Is that it? Okay. Do we have any comments from the public?
You said it was exceeding her expectation of expenses. Is that what you said? You went over? Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am. In the Buildings and Grounds Department, yes.
What kind of expenses exceeded that? Where was that? In what area?
It was in the areas of electricity, repairs and maintenance for our grounds, operating supplies, gasoline and oil, and waste removal. And the last line item in this was to create budget for the trees that were planted in the amount of $15,200. But you remember we did receive a grant for that same amount. So
There wasn't an expense then.
for the trees,
Yeah.
it nets out to zero essentially, but we still have to create budget for it because it was a cost center, and we spent $15,200, but we did receive funding for that. So those are the areas that the budget amendment reflects.
Any further public comment? Bring it back to the board. Jane, you want to call the roll, please? Thank you, Tommy.
Get the motion.
Supervisor Gangemi,
Yes.
Supervisor Halbig,
Yes.
Supervisor Guglielmi,
Yes.
and President Miller.
Yes. That's it for the action agenda. Do we have any add-on items?
No, sir.
Petitions and communications? Staff reports, community services, federal special response, security, and code enforcement. Again, we're still dealing with April reports, so does anybody representing those units want to speak up on the latest? Chris, I have one question for you. In your report on newcomers to Sunny Lake, you use the term residents, but I think you really are talking about households, aren't you? It would be clear if you change that to households, because you then rest the number of households with 2 or less and so forth, so people might be confused that we only had 16 residents rather than 16 households. So. Okay, the investment pool, Tanya, is there any update on that we need to have, or you talked to that last meeting?
Yes, on May 27th, we transferred $3.9 million to TD Bank out of the SBA funds. So the reports that you will see for the next meeting will reflect those transfers and balances.
And do we just have Plan B money and just a little bit of Plan A money left in there? Is that? There
is Plan B and, of course, Plan A. So each month, the Plan B money transfers to Plan A. So Plan B balances, I'd have to pull. I'll have the information for you as an update for the next meeting. So there is.
What kind of recovery are we making in Plan B?
Not as fast as anticipated, of course.
But we are making some progress there?
Yes, definitely. I would hope within the next maybe 2 years that Plan B will finally be taken down to zero. Let's hope. I mean,
that would mean we have recovered all the money from our account.
Yeah, as far as losses, I maybe 3 to 5% is what we're anticipating. I think initially when all this happened 3 years ago, governments anticipated major losses, but in reality, it's not happening that way. I do get monthly updates from the SBA Prime Fund, so I will look into that to see what their anticipated recovery time is for Fund B.
And that 3 to 5% is what you're talking about in terms of recovery, is that right?
That's actually the loss that we might take. I think we still might take that. But as Fund B recovers and is transferred to our Fund A, I mean, I'll be taking a look at that over the next year or so. But it's still going to be a little while before we see this Fund B diminish.
Tanya, what do they invest in? What are those funds invested in?
The Prime Fund that we're invested in is a pool of about over 800 other governmental entities. And we don't have any control of what's invested there. It's mostly treasuries, but I can find out more specifically what that is, what they're investing in as far as the pool itself. There is a percentage breakdown every month that they give me.
If they invest in treasuries, how can we take a loss?
It's not the way it used to be. 3 years ago, I believe it was in relation to mortgage-backed securities, where the losses were that fund.
Really?
Yeah, the fund itself. When all that went down, I mean, that's where they cut off. Nobody can withdraw. Everybody got, everybody's, it was quite a talk of the town whenever that happened. So their investment strategies have changed over the years, and I have that detail in the office of what, each month that changes a little bit, but they're very conservative now to what they used to be. So
they were investing in real estate trusts and so on. I'm surprised we have any money left.
I'm surprised.
You should read that book, The Big Short.
I am surprised, yes.
Tanya, one of the things they lost a ton of money on was Enron. They lost quite a bit of money on that.
They had a big investment in Enron, did they?
And they did. And I really applaud you for taking the initiative to move this money from A fund. And as B matures or grows into A, we can start picking money off of that as well. But good job.
Okay, thank you, Tanya. Before we get to our district attorney, Kim, I have a couple questions for you. You might want to update us on the Deer Run project.
Yeah, pass that off to David.
Sure.
David Bell, I'm the golf course superintendent at Sun and Lake, the fund. Okay. The project on renovated greens on Deer Run is going on plan, on schedule, and this past Wednesday we were 2 weeks from our planning date. Everything's looking good. This week we've been sodding around a lot of the bunkers, complete some of the sod work, and then next week will be our third week of planning, and then we'll continue to, we should finish the rest of the sod work, and everything's on schedule. Everything's looking good.
We're out of danger now as far as any storms affecting our
if we have any big rain events, all the grass is rooted down good enough to be able to withstand any kind of washing out.
I noticed in the last report that you talked about some watering problems. I'm sure it's a drought that's causing all this, but how serious is that getting?
That the irrigation problems that we were experiencing were on Turtle Run. The station. We had the variable flow drive inside the pump station. One of the computer boards was malfunctioning and it wasn't running properly. We had the technicians out. It took some time to diagnose the problem. Once we finally got it figured out and got the part ordered, everything was installed and everything's working properly.
Thanks, David. Kim, you want to let us know about the new restaurant manager?
Sorry, that's okay. I want to commend you guys for using any available spare parts you could locate, and by getting the board, I think you spent $500 getting the board, which was a big savings of about $15,000 if you had to replace the whole module. So, good job in searching out those resources.
Thank you, David.
Kim O'Neill, Kitchen Partners. We do have a new supervisor for the outside staff, the wait staff, the bar staff. Her name is Aubrey. I think I introduced you to I think everybody here has met her at least once. She started Monday for her first day, and next time you see her, just welcome again. That'd be great.
So she'll be Miss Outside and Kevin will be Mr. Inside, is that right?
That is correct. Kevin will do the kitchen staff. She'll handle the wait staff and the bar staff.
And that'll complete our management staffing?
Yes, for the restaurant, yes, sir.
Thanks, Steve. John, we have district attorney report.
Yes, sir. I'll start with an update on the McGuire Trust case. A couple of supervisors were in attendance at the hearing. The hearing lasted approximately an hour and a half. It was at the hearing, the district's position was represented by Jim Lobozo, my partner, who addressed the position of the district regarding a motion to dismiss on the statute of limitations issue. I think the bottom line is that, as well as lack of standing, I'm sorry, the court heard all of the arguments. I personally thought that the arguments of the other side were not persuasive, but we'll see what the court does with that. As with any motion to dismiss, because when you dismiss a case, it is gone forever. They're very hesitant to do that in the motion stage. I'll just be upfront with you about that. But at the same time, the judge has clearly not been very receptive to the plaintiff's arguments on this issue. Even if the case goes forward, there are a great number of defenses which have yet to be asserted that would also be very persuasive, I think. So I think the plaintiffs have a very steep curve to overcome to prevail in this matter, but I would never rule it out. This is America. You never know what's going to happen. And the bottom line is, while I think we have by far the better end of it, we have to let it play out and see what happens. The court's ruling, I expect, will be made available in a week, maybe two. That's
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Well, also, Gene and I were there, and we noticed that the attorney for the school board and the, what was the other? Tax collector, and of course by phone, the wildlife guy, but they certainly were scrambling to disassociate themselves from the defense team.
Well,
rightly so, probably.
The bottom line there is that there are two specific things at issue here. One is the ad valorem taxes, and there's a lot of law on ad valorem matters, and then the non-ad valorem stuff, which is us, that was added on. And you may recall that Mr. Ware basically said, who represents the plaintiff, basically said that they had no cause against the ad valorem folks, that the value was the value, and that was it. They're complaining against the district. And as I understand their complaint, the main thing they're concerned about is, or trying to make much of, is that our expenditures are used for things like salaries and vehicles and whatever that do not directly benefit property. But the bottom line, things like a central water line would be a direct benefit. But with respect to operation and maintenance assessments, that is the very purpose for which these assessments are levied. I spoke yesterday with Mr. Lewis, Terry Lewis, Association of General Special district's general counsel. And he was very strongly in that we had the high ground there. That was very clearly the very purpose for which these assessments were levied, to operate the governmental entity, and there's no other way to fund that. And in fact, ad valorem taxes go for the same thing, for that matter. So.
Well, in other words, you're feeling much better.
I've always felt fairly good about this one, sir. But as it unfolds, I continue to feel good about it. But, again, I would just simply caution the board that while I'm saying it looks good, it doesn't necessarily mean it will end well.
How did they propose that we pay for the staff and the employees to maintain our infrastructure?
Sir, they have no proposal. They're simply attacking.
So, in other words, they're just shooting in the dark.
Precisely.
And this can go on and on and on forever. I guess I don't understand why they didn't dismiss already.
You'd have to speak with the judge about that, sir. I can only say that in my opinion, it's a spurious motion and a spurious lawsuit. We do have a motion in for our attorney's fees in the event that we do prevail. We'll see what the court does with that. That's already been filed. But the bottom line, again, is Mr. McGuire has over the challenges. And
he's got a lot of money in his
loss. He will accept. I mean, from his perspective, I'm sure it's worth $100,000 in attorney's fees to try to recoup his $1 million plus investment in the district. So he's going to have to do that. That's the bottom line. And he is doing that. I expect that even if the case is dismissed, it will go up on appeal, almost virtually certain to go on appeal if the judge dismisses it.
Isn't there can you just dismiss it summarily and say no appeals? Is there any way to do that?
That's right.
So it goes on and on and on.
It lives on, yes.
Well, we're very lucky we have the system we have, Mr. Giuliani. Being at the trial or the court date there, Mr. Valenti really did a great thing. While the other attorney brought a case, but he didn't have any documentation to it, and Mr. Valenti had borrowed his daughter's or son's Kindle, was able to look up the case online and just flip through it. And Mr. Laboza just said, well, let's take a look at that. So I thought that was a pretty good, and that's egg on the face on the other side for doing that. And I'm glad, Mr. McCoy, you brought up the fact that it is approximately $1 million that Mr. McGuire has sunk into this venture. And I'm sure he's going to try and continue to recoup that money. I just have one question on one of the lawsuits that are pending, and that is on your letter from June 2nd. It's TD Bank versus Delmar and SNL, and it says that the last meeting, the plaintiff complaint meaning district's assessments are inferior to mortgage, but that's not true, is it? I think it's paragraph G.
I'm not sure what your comment is about, sir. My point was plaintiff's complaint naming district assessments as inferior to mortgage is correct, in that they are asserting that their mortgage is superior to our assessments, and therefore they're moving to extinguish our assessments or foreclose them out as part of their lawsuit and remove it as a lien from the property. Our position is that district assessments are akin to and have the same priority as ad valorem taxes, which means they're superior to the mortgage and not inferior to the mortgage.
That's what I was saying, that we have superior over the mortgage.
Yes, sir.
And when we go into other foreclosures, that still is the case. It doesn't change.
We always assert that. Okay. We've been doing that for years already, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We frequently will get foreclosures, and people just aren't familiar with district assessments and our Enabling Act. Normally, when we educate them, the district is dropping the case, as we were in this particular case.
But this is the opposing counsel that's saying that the assessments are inferior. So
Yes, sir, that's correct. It's just an allegation.
it's an allegation. I understand.
Okay. While we're on the litigation report, were there any other questions then? Okay, and the foreclosure report? Okay, I've submitted that.
I've got some questions on the foreclosure report.
Now, I don't want to confuse the foreclosure report with the foreclosure plan.
Okay. Are we going to talk about the foreclosure plan? Okay.
I was saving that for last because I knew there'd be a lot of discussion on that. But were there any questions on the foreclosure report itself? Okay. So moving now then to the foreclosure plan. That's the document that was recently sent to Mr. Searle. You'll recall that I prepared the plan, sent it to Mr. Searle. We got an email from him saying they were very encouraged by the plan. They liked what we had written, but they did ask that we prepare an Exhibit E, which listed the lots that we intended to foreclose by priority of foreclosure. I addressed that by actually taking the easy way out, which was simply alphabetizing Exhibit B, which are all the lots owned by the bank, or subject only to Unit 16 assessments, I apologize, and alphabetizing them so that we would be able to easily determine where the multiple lots owned by the same owner were located. And the other way we did it was by value, so that we would be able to easily see the high value lots to the low value lots. And the priorities then would clearly be the multiple lot ownership and the higher value lots. I do not yet know if they wish for us to take the time to prepare a separate exhibit, and frankly this will be a very time-consuming exhibit to take all of these exhibits and manually prepare something that gives the priority of foreclosure based on the combination of factors such as value and multiple lot ownership, etc., and location outside of the United States, and all those things. So I have not yet got a confirmation that is acceptable, but the foreclosure plan, as modified and prepared, was submitted with that proposal. So they are currently evaluating our submission, and we expect to get that back. My expectation is what they're really looking for is something that they can measure performance against our proposal against our actual performance. So by that I mean what they really want is us to say, these are the lots we're going to foreclose on. Starting here, we intend to foreclose on these lots by this month, the next month, by the next month. We have 300 lots that we're going to foreclose in 1 year, and there are 680 lots outstanding to be foreclosed. This is where we're at on the foreclosure reports. We're required to give them monthly reports, and it is this monitoring that I know they're looking at. Now, whether they think what we have submitted by this document here is sufficiently precise for them to monitor the foreclosures is going to be the question. And I don't yet have an answer for that. For me, it's easy enough to determine which lots need to go first. I think for you to look at both of these schedules that we have prepared together, it would be easy enough to glean which ones need to go first. But if they want us to actually stop and list them and prepare another spreadsheet listing all 182 lots in order of foreclosure, I don't know. But if they do, we'll just have to stop and do that.
At one point, that once we get some response from Fifth Third Bank, at what point does control or who is going to say we're going to foreclose on this or that? I know we want to avoid phase 5 bondholder, any type of threat of litigation from the debt group. I'm just curious, are we going to make the determination or are they going to make the determination? If they make the determination, then all the costs associated with that really falls on them to pay us back for that.
The emails I have received, and frankly, as I read the resolution approving the initial bridge note, it would be theirs to dictate to us about foreclosure and ours to bear the expense. Okay? So they have indicated in an email to me that their intention is to evaluate the foreclosure plan and to initiate foreclosures at the beginning of next month. That was what I received from them, and I would expect that as their current schedule. So they know they're in it for the long run. We do have an issue that will have to be addressed. Excuse me, and that is as follows. Because their lien has been the subject of our foreclosure, the lien disappears and merges with the title once foreclosure is complete, certificate of title is issued. Because we are not, and we are specifically accepting out and not foreclosing the Phase 5 bond at the request and direction of the bondholder, that means that bond is still outstanding. So what you end up with is the district owns the property subject to the Phase 5 bond. So practically speaking, now what happens is, okay, so a buyer comes along and says, we'll buy the property. We use hypothetical examples that their lien was $10,000, that Phase 5 lien is $10,000, and we foreclose their lien, so we have the property subject to the Phase 5 bond. The offer is for $12,000 to buy the property. Phase 5 bondholder says, well, you got to pay off my lien first. And so these guys now are saying, well, what's wrong with this picture? Phase 5 gets $10,000 and $2,000 is left over for us, and the district gets nothing. So we don't like that.
Oh, we don't like it because we're losing money on that.
That's right.
Okay.
Here's what I want to carry on to. So all they can direct us to do is to foreclose their lien pursuant to the resolution. Okay? So what happens if they want to preserve their lien as well? So if they can do that, then their lien would be out there at $10,000. Phase 5 is at $10,000. The offer is made for $12,000, and they say, okay, we'll each take a haircut. I'll take 6 for mine, you take 6 for yours, and we'll go on our way, get it back on the roll to produce some taxes. Okay, for us, for all of us. So if that's the case, that works out well. The problem is, they cannot direct us to foreclose on the property based on our O&M assessment only and not foreclose their lien. There's the problem. And that needs to be resolved, and that's out there for negotiations so we can all reach agreement on how we're going to do that. And it might just be a tri-party agreement between the district, the bank, and Phase 5 bondholder. We'll work something out. But I did want to let you know that is out there. That is an impediment that we're dealing with.
Right now, who has priority as far as getting any proceeds from the sale?
Our position is that as to the improvements in place by the Phase 5 bond, Phase 5 has priority. As to the improvements in place by the Unit 16 bond, Unit 16 has priority. So that way we get around the issue of nobody else can have a lien prior to ours. Because each one was for separate improvement, and each one has a first and prior lien as to that improvement. Now, I don't know a better way to handle it.
It's complex, and it's very confusing to some people that have called me and said, well, who's going to get the money first, and how do we make a deal, and do we turn around and give discounts, things like that. But I'm sure you're working on it, and I'm sure that each of the lien holders are looking to get the most they can, but they have to be in reality check because the market has gone down since this Phase 5 bond and Unit 16 came to be.
It all has to be fair. That's what you're saying. I think that's right. What we agree to. And there is a way to do that through this tri-party agreement mechanism. But in the case of the example I gave, we would not be authorized to sell the property for $12,000 unless we had the specific consent of each of the lien holders, Phase 5 and Unit 16, to sell it at a reduced price and then agree to accept the reduced payoff. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
We're going to get all that in writing, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, okay.
John, I've got a question about the Phase 5. What possible damage could we cause NRP by foreclosing on lots with Phase 5 delinquencies?
Okay. Here's the deal with that, and let's just address that directly because I don't know what would happen. But Phase 5 has written us, and they have stated specifically, do not foreclose the Phase 5 lien. Okay?
Have we agreed to that?
Well, that's the question. And that is it up to us to agree? Because when I spoke to Mr. Spiro, I told him that I had spoken to Ken Arden, who's an attorney with Bryant Miller Olive. They do a substantial amount of bond work, as you know. Mr. Arden's position was that Phase 5 cannot assert a position that's harmful to the district. In other words, by refusing to allow their lien to be compromised, then the district is then unable to sell the property, unable to collect its assessments, unable to return the properties to the tax rolls, and therefore unable to accomplish its governmental function. Although a counter-argument, in my opinion, could be made that a big part of what we do, our real function, and oddly enough, while we do function more or less as a municipality out here, truly we do, we're a unique animal across the state, if you want to know the truth. The other half of that is, we are formed for the purpose of financing infrastructure at governmental rates to have a mechanism by which development can occur. And so if that is our true mission, to the extent that this financing has already taken place, I don't know that our governmental mission, our objective, is impeded by the Phase 5 assertion, because all that affects is future borrowings for future improvements, not existing borrowing. Having said that, Mr. Arden's position was take them on. Okay? Phase 5 said bring it when I talk to them, because we're going to fight you every step of the way, and when we do, we're going to tie up all this stuff in the district, and you can't sell anything anyway while all this litigation is going on. And I guarantee you, our lawyers will have you tied up for a couple of years to where you can't do anything. Now that was not out of any ugliness towards the district or whatever. It was simply their position that, look, we've got this lien out there, we've made the investment in the district, we intend to recoup our investment, and so you guys just coming out there willy-nilly foreclosing our lien when we told you not to hurts us. They very strongly felt that you have to wait for the market to recover, and then we're all going to be players in the market, and we can all recoup our investment. But until the market recovers, whenever that's going to be, they're saying do not foreclose the Phase 5 bond.
But it's customary to foreclose on delinquent properties, just like you just said, and there's statutory laws that say that we do that.
And they lose their assessment just like everybody else after 5 years.
Do we have any documents or agreements signed with NRP agreeing not to foreclose on delinquent properties?
We have only their written direction to us to not do so, sir. There's never been an agreement entered into by the district.
Have we got any documents or agreements with NRP that says we do foreclose on delinquent properties?
Actually, and oddly enough, I did check that with respect to the Phase 5 trust agreement, and I was kind of surprised to see that the trust agreement actually says that the trustee directs the foreclosures.
And who is that?
Sun Bank.
A bank.
Yeah, it's a bank. I don't think it's Sun Trust. No.
Have you contacted them at any time?
Not.
Could you contact them, please, and ask them their opinion on that? And we also have a second amendment to the land sale and purchase agreement with NRP. And in that agreement, it says we foreclose, and they would pay for foreclosure costs, and they would have the option to pick up the property at that time. That's a signed agreement with NRP. But now they're saying don't do it on any of it. I don't think they've got a leg to stand on. We've got a signed agreement with those people, and I don't understand it.
Well,
I think you should check with the trustee, tell them what the situation is, and try to get direction from them. If it says in the Phase 5 document that they're the ones that direct us, then let's see what their direction is.
I'd be pleased to do that. Let me ask, what is it? How do you want this to end?
Well, I would like to see us not having our hands tied on whatever we want to do with these foreclosures, just like it should be. I mean, they're saying without any background, any basis at all, not to foreclose because they're going to file a lawsuit. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. I don't think they could win it. They might tie something up. I mean, what the hell? It's tied up anyway.
But we have years worth of foreclosure activity just on the Fifth Third liens only. In other words, if we start with that priority, just going after Fifth Third, that gives us time to negotiate what to do on the other list of 200 or so that have coastal bonds on them. Plus, you've got a market absorption that probably won't begin for another year and a half to 2 years.
John, the whole idea of foreclosing is to put these properties back on the market. So what exactly is NRPI's objection? Because if we do sell the properties, they would get their share, I would think.
Their objection is very basic, and that is that the market value is so depressed right now that if it were to be placed back on the market and sold, the return that we would get from the sale to apply to their payoff amount would be far reduced from what it would be if we simply waited for the market to return.
Well, I guess what they should be insisting on is that we don't care if you foreclose, but if you sell, we want our full share. I don't understand why they're trying to keep us from foreclosing.
Well, I could be wrong about this as well, but I think part of the issue is they're likely hoping to be able to sell the property themselves subject to their outstanding bond and be able to recoup the entire amount of the bond liened against the property. To the extent that they own the property.
Okay, so the properties that they own. The properties that they own.
Right.
Yeah, okay. But there's a lot of property they don't own that have a Phase 5 bond.
Well, and this week they lost 5 properties to tax deed sales.
Well, they haven't lost them. I mean, that bond...
Title change. Yeah.
But that bond has to be paid, doesn't it?
Well, with respect to the bond, we reported a notice of governmental lien with respect to all of those bond properties. And in essence, we're really doing what we have to do to protect the bondholders that we have worked with. But that lien is preserved despite the issuance of a tax deed. It's the only thing that survives the issuance of a tax deed. It's a duly recorded notice of governmental lien under Chapter 197. So.
Well, a bond is basically a lien, isn't it?
A bond, our assessment, as recorded in the public records, constitutes a lien against the property.
So we have Fifth Third as a stake, Phase 5 as a stake. If somebody buys that tax certificate, they have to make good on both of those.
We have a stake as well from our.
I know, but that's understood. But the big discussion here is Phase 5 right now. Okay, they're saying don't foreclose. Well, I don't understand that because if we sell the property, the only thing they should be insisting on, we want our full share. Don't stop us from foreclosing. And if somebody buys a tax certificate, they have to make good on all the liens on the property.
Okay, so what happens, let me just ask this. Logically, if we did foreclose the Phase 5 bond, all right, now we own it. It is owned by the district in fiduciary capacity. If we were to attempt to try to sell it, subject to anything less than full payoff without their consent, I don't think we could do that, number one.
Okay.
Number two, now it's in our name. We're the ones getting the tax bill. So, if the taxes aren't paid, who's going to be suffering that loss? So there are a lot of issues involved. It's not as clean and easy as it sounds at first.
Well, their thinking is we want the full value of the Phase 5.
It is, but...
And their approach is don't foreclose, we'll wait until the market reopens.
As I was pointing out earlier, in my opinion, and I don't think I'm alone in this opinion, but the tri-party agreement that I addressed earlier is the type of agreement that everybody has to come together and say, okay, we're going to share the haircut, here's how we're going to do it. If we simply pull our way through and foreclose without an agreement like this, now we've got a problem because we own the property. If Phase 5 does not consent to the sale of the property for less than their full payoff, the property is still stagnant, only now stagnant in our name, subject to tax deeds being issued on it, and now we can no longer have the ability to record a lien. Now this is very important. Let me address this issue because this is exactly what had just happened in 4 cases for the N16 bondholder base of Fifth Third Bank. And here's what's happened. Because we have foreclosed their lien, we now own the property in a fiduciary capacity for them. Okay? So now if there's an application for a tax deed, we're the title holder of record. We're the ones supposed to pay that are assessed with the taxes. You may recall from my prior letter, I've written to them and said, if we get a tax deed, we will notify you of this application, so you will have the chance to pay the taxes on the property because it's your problem. We own the property only for you. So if you want to preserve your title of the property, you need to pay these taxes. And the problem is, in those cases, we cannot record a notice of governmental lien. Because we own the property, there is no lien. We own it because we have foreclosed the lien. So the title is, the lien is merged with our title. So there's no ability to preserve the lien anymore, like we do with all the other properties. So that's a real issue. So that's why this tri-party agreement is a better issue, in my opinion, to where we could preserve the lien. We can record notice of lien in any tax deed application. Everybody wins, and we still work out this payment issue. So I think, I could be wrong, but I think this tri-party agreement is the only solution that is going to be meaningful in terms of all the other issues we have with working this craziness out that we find ourselves in.
Well, the other alternative is have some patience. I think I expressed that wish to Fifth Third when we first met with them. You know, things have changed from when they gave us a loan, and they need to have some patience. So now we got Phase 5 saying don't foreclose, and Fifth Third is saying foreclose.
Well, let's talk about that. Okay, first of all, Fifth Third is not a Phase 5 bondholder. Bondholders long-term, you're in for the long run. They were always just a one-year bridge loan that's now gone back. Their whole focus is get this temporary loan off the books, and the only way we can do that is by doing the foreclosure, and they were stuck, in other words. And believe me, Fifth Third is very frustrated that they are stuck in this position and have no alternatives. But Fifth Third,
they didn't do that out of because they were good guys. They were making money.
Well, sure they were. And they're having good times.
So sometimes you get stuck, and they need to have patience. That's my point.
I think they will.
I was just going to say, their attitude from the first day they came in until now is 180 degrees change.
Okay, good.
180 degrees. They are working with us. They've taken every recommendation we've given to them. Now, after due deliberation, they didn't just say, yeah, you're right, let's do that. No, they talked to their lawyers, they went through everything, and they finally realized everything Mr. Wright and I were telling them was correct. And so they've come across to our way of thinking, and they know they're in for the long run, they know it's going to take time, but they are in concurrence with our recommendations.
And they realize it's going to take several years for this to come to a conclusion.
Well, we have made some strides.
Yeah, and they have, as Mr. McClure said, it took some discussions and it took some internal looks at their organization as well, but they've reached the same conclusion that we did at the very beginning. In fact, the gentleman with the bank says everything you, in a conversation with me one day, he says everything you told me is true and has come to happen. I mean, it has come to pass, just like you said it would. So, they understand the deal. We're in this together.
John, what about the 20 properties that NRP owns that have Phase 5 and Fifth Third bond against them? Everything Changes LLC and the NRP properties. That's 23 properties, I think, in total. They could be foreclosed on.
Certainly.
I mean, because they own the bond, that wouldn't be any problem at all. That could go on that primary list, I would think.
But
could it not?
actually, because they own the property, that's the very type of property they would like the bond not to be foreclosed on, because that's the kind of property they could actually then sell outright and maximize their bond return.
Yeah, but you wouldn't damage them at all by putting that on the primary list. They own the property and they own the bond. Correct?
NRP, the bondholder does not own the property, because everything changes are not the same people as the bondholder. The bondholder consists of different principles, then everything changes.
John, I think the questions raised by Supervisor Halbert need to be answered on a priority basis. I think both points he's made are extremely important. I would urge you to address that as soon as possible.
I will.
Let's talk a little bit about the mechanics. You state in your report that the goal for the first year of processing is 300 cases. When does that start? The next fiscal year?
That if we started it, would to a degree it has started, in that we've sent the man letters out, getting ready for the preparation of the complaints. In some cases, and that's on the foreclosure report in Unit 16. You can see those. With respect to when we would actually begin the foreclosures, based on their discussion through email with me, they would like to be able to start those, authorized beginning those in July 1st. So that's.
Well, I would suggest that that's not going to happen if we don't have the budget for it. Now, let's talk a little bit about costs. What are we talking about in terms of foreclosure costs? I think you said yesterday that you had, of course, your attorney fees involved, and you have your other administrative and court costs. So, taking 300 cases and dividing those into, am I correct in dividing those into two categories?
Yes, you are.
Okay. What are we talking about in legal fees for foreclosure? And I realize some are packages and some aren't, but we need to have...
Sure. I would say, in looking at all of these things, when you're talking about the complaint preparation, analyzing the title, name the necessary parties, service or process for the necessary parties, all the process that I gave you earlier, if everything went swimming, just right, in other words, and we were able to serve people, find them the first time, get them served, and then default and move forward, the legal fee probably averages around $1,500 a lot. Okay? Now, if there are multiple lots in single ownership, obviously we can do economy of scale for that. But if you look through the reports, I don't have the exact number for you now, but there aren't that many in that category. Nothing like Florida International Yachts, for instance. It's largely like Hornick Homes might have 7 or 8. Different people own 2 lots together. A lot of those types of 2 double lot ownership, 3 lot ownership. But not a major impact on all 182 lots that we'd start with. So, and I would also point out to you that while it says 300 lots, that was a number that was derived when we just said, okay, if we're going to do it over a 2-year period and we have 600 lots to foreclose, we're just going to try to do 300 the first year so that we can get them all done in 2 years. That's where that number came from. The 182 lots are all the lots that exist subject to the Unit 16 assessment only and no Phase 5. I would point that out. Okay. Now, getting directly to your question, the costs include, number one, the filing fees for the court. If it's just your basic lot, $400 filing fee. Then you have service and process fees depending on how many people own the lot. So if you got 4 people that own the lot together, and we have a number of those, then you got to serve all 4 of them individually. And if you get 3 but not 4, you got another kind of problem. Anytime you can't serve somebody, then you have to appoint, you have to publish it in the newspaper, you have to appoint an attorney ad litem, you have to pay the attorney to prepare the answer and submit it. So you're adding roughly $400 to every lot that you can't serve somebody on. And there's quite a number of lots that we do not give good service process on because they've been owned for so long. People in Canada, Venezuela, or even in the United States that are moved, you just can't find them. So it's not an easy thing to do.
What happens if you can't find them?
Just what I said. You publish in the newspaper and appoint an attorney ad litem. It just increases your cost of foreclosure.
Okay. What else?
In the event that there's a home on the property and the value is in the $200,000 range, the filing fee is not $400 anymore, but it's $1,900. It goes up considerably. So the filing fee could well exceed the legal fees to foreclose. That's just something that's out there. The legislature did that based on their desire to increase the funding fees for the court system. So they increased the filing fees majorly with respect to foreclosure. The demand letters that we are preparing for each one, when we get the direction to foreclose, first thing we do is send out a demand letter, and we also prepare a deed to go with the demand letter, so that we say, look, if you want to make it easy, just sign it over back to the district, and we'll take the deed in lieu. We cannot finally accept the deed in lieu until such time as we make sure the title's clear, and we make that clear in the letter as well. And remember, we send those out before we do an analysis of title work. So once we get the deed back, we have to analyze title before we record it, so we don't take something subject to a big mortgage ourselves.
Well, okay, but for budgeting purposes, what are we talking about?
Well, as I stated, if you're going to just budget, I think you have to use averages, and I would average $1,500 a lot and average $500 in cost.
So we're talking about $2,000.
If you want to average things, I would say to budget.
Well, what else can we do, John?
That's all you can do. I don't have a better solution.
We have to budget for this, don't we?
Well, I was just suggesting to budget, that's the number to use.
How much do we have left in our foreclosure budget?
Probably, I have to look it up, probably $80,000 this fiscal year.
60 to 80, so that's maybe 40 exercises this year, is that correct? Because we're not going to go over budget on that. Do they expect us to go over budget?
Sir, they expect you to do what you have to do based on the resolution.
Well, we have to do what we have to do. The other thing is, we're talking about a lot of money. And so far, all I've heard is sole source. What are the regulations? We're talking about, 650 transactions times 2,000. What is that? 1.3 million. I guess on the basis of our charter and so forth, we're certainly not talking about a sole source situation, are we?
Hang on a second, please. We're talking a total of 182 lots under Unit 16 only, and we've lost a number of those already due to tax deeds and more to come, so it won't be that many. And then 273 subject to both Unit 16 and Phase 5. So that's a total of 405. If all of those lots would go to foreclosure, it's almost certain they won't all go to foreclosure. So,
well, let me read your comment in your report. Assuming that approximately 10% of the delinquent properties provide a deed in lieu of foreclosure, the Unit 16 assessment only lots remaining to be foreclosed will number approximately 400, and the Unit 16 Phase 5 bond lots will number approximately 250. That's 650 to me.
That is true, and those numbers need to be modified because, and I apologize for this, but when we were working with the district staff, what we got were numbers that were subject to the Unit 16 assessment, and in fact, we can only foreclose those properties that are delinquent, and the delinquencies are nowhere near the numbers that are in the report. So my apologies, I didn't catch that. I did catch on the earlier part, Unit 16 only, but I didn't catch that one. So you're right, that's not accurate.
even amending those figures, which please do, we're talking about a ton of money, aren't we?
Sir, $2,000 a lot, of course we are.
Well, I'd like to hear the board, and then I'm going to open up for public discussion, but I'd like to hear the board's comment on the sole source versus the bidding process. John, you're our legal counsel. We bid everything over 10,000, don't we? This is
you're not required to bid legal fees, but if you want to bid the foreclosure, sir, you're the board, it's your money. I'm not sitting here trying to defend anything, but I will tell you.
John, I'm not attacking you. I'm just raising the issue whether or not this should be put out to bid. I don't know.
It is not required to be bid.
It's not required. Even with administrative costs, it's not required.
It's not required to be bid.
Okay, I'd like to hear from the board whatever comments you may have on that.
One other fact that you need to put into your thinking, there are 63 more lots going up for tax deed sale in the next 30 days. So you could have, in Unit 16, this one party has filed for tax deeds on 110 lots in Summit Lakes, which 63 or more are in Unit 16. So you could have a single owner with 60 lots by the end of July, if he does what he did earlier this week. So that will factor in as well, and they may well pay because they've been noticed that they owe the money, and apparently they have not responded back to us.
You're talking about his Longbow Key?
Alumni Partners, LLC.
Yeah, that would take all those lots out of the equation then, right? So that would be what, 60 off the board?
And I think y'all saw the numbers earlier this week that I sent you, where they have probably put out in tax certificates $500,000 buying certificates throughout the district.
We still have the issue that I mentioned earlier. Well, what I'd like to see is some firm numbers as to what this thing's going to cost us based upon the plan that we've laid out. And also, I'd like to, what would happen if we would say we're just not going to do it? We're foreclosing. We're going to use everybody in the district's money to foreclose on properties that they don't get any benefit out of, actually, at all. So it's a big problem for me. But we've been doing it all along. Maybe we just say, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what we can afford to do, and this is what we're going to put in our budget to do it with. And just let the chips fall where they may. I don't know, but I'd like to see some firm numbers based upon the plan you got laid out and the agreement you got with the third to see what we're talking about and how we can spread it out. I don't mind. I would like to. That's what I'd like to see.
I'm just doing quick calculations. And of course, firm numbers I think would be impossible to give, but close numbers are not hard to give. If we had 182 and we took 10% off for deed in lieu, that's 164. If you took another, let's say 50 off of that for tax deeds and other things, that's going to be about 110 lots. Okay. And similarly, on both the Phase 5 and Unit 16, 273, 10% of that is 27. You're left with 246 lots. And if you had some percentage of those that went, let's just say you had 230 lots left there. I'm just using because I have no better way to do it. That's 340 lots. So if you had 340 lots at $2,000 a lot, and most of that, I've already gone over the issues there. That would be $680,000 over 2 years.
Well, you're hearing, I guess, from Fifth Third's lawyer. We're not hearing anything from Fifth Third. Have you been in contact with them, Mike, on any of this?
Extensively.
Well, we're hearing all this secondhand. Are they prepared to sit down, talk about it?
Fifth Third?
Yes.
Oh, sure. I think what I mentioned earlier, they have come from a position of you go foreclose everything right now to we need to phase this out over at least 2 years, if not 3 years. They also recognize the complications we have with Phase 5, and both Mr. Mr. Spiro and the Fifth Third people have said, well, when it's all said and done, we're all going to have to, and I'm going to use Spiro's words, take a bit of a haircut, aren't we? And I said, yes. And Fifth Third people recognize that as well. And that's why I echo what Mr. McClure said. I think we will work out a tri-party agreement on the lots that have both bonds on them. But I think it's going to take 6 months to a year. So in the meantime, what we're talking about doing is demand letters, which I think we'll get a pretty good response on. I've got a gentleman's bet with Mr. McClure that we do better than 10%, but that's here to there. If we do 10%, that will be good.
Well, given these revised numbers, what are we talking about? The number of lots that do not have the Phase 5 bonds on them?
Number of lots without Phase 5 that are
under
Unit 16 only, number 182 right now.
182. So that's what we're zeroing in on.
Yes, sir.
Okay, but I would assume that Fifth Third doesn't give a damn what we do about Phase 5. They want to foreclose. Is that right?
I would not say it quite like that.
Well, but I mean,
they know there's an 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Is anybody addressing that issue collectively?
They have had direct negotiations with Phase 5. Yes, sir.
Which has come to naught so far. Is that right?
Yes.
There's nothing in writing in terms of an actual agreement, no.
And I don't think at this point there will be an agreement between those two bondholders, between the two of them. I think it'll wind up being a three-party agreement where we all sit down and work something out.
Okay, let's hear from the public. If we have any public, I'm sorry, Jim.
That's okay. Attending the tax deed sale on Wednesday, the alumni partners, they already paid $73,284 for these certs, and it appears, according to the numbers that I have, and also what you have, Mr. Wright, is that we're looking to get $160,000 from that. So that's just 16. I believe there's about 30 more coming up in June 22nd.
There's a little over 60 scheduled in the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay. So I'm looking at, let's see what these individuals come up with. No one bid on these lots. There was nobody said, yeah, I'm not going to...
Dull session, wasn't it?
Huh?
It was a dull session.
It was a very dull session, but that's okay. It was very informative. So I don't see us, going to the top and trying to pull out $680,000 to cover these foreclosures right away. If they're willing to wait 2 years, maybe 3 years, and at some point in time, maybe some of these lots will sell. But what you see is the increased cost of carrying these lots for any potential buyers. You have the county taxes, you have assessments, and of course then you have 5 bond payments that are due. So I'm still looking at any contract or any trustee back and forth from, I guess it is SunTrust or whatever bank it is, find out what they have that they can hold over our head for this. I just hate going to the well trying to pull out $680,000 and set that aside. I think we're only governed to set aside whatever monies we feel are necessary to continue some foreclosures. I feel they just can't come in and rob our piggy bank.
Well, would you agree that we're certainly not going to do anything more than our budget is
Absolutely. I think we have, $68,000 left?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that for the rest of the year. I wouldn't even rush into tap into that. Let's see what the next tax deals go for. These people evidently alumni saw some benefit to cough up $73,000 for 16 lots. It's not the bargain that everything changes. They paid about $3 a lot for some of the lots in here. So I'm sitting saying we should just kind of sit and wait it out. Let's go another month and see what happens. I don't want to rush into spending any more money.
Okay, well, we'll come back after that. Rusty, 5 numbers, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. You on?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Before you start, I'd like to thank Jane Fry for her services, and she's going to be sorely missed. And we appreciate what all.
I think you turned it off. Is it on?
Is that better? No. How about that? Okay.
Let's use this one.
Okay. I think I can be loud enough. Jane, thank you for your service, and good luck where you're going. Okay? Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We should have had this conversation many years ago to be open and transparent. It's a hell of a time to start having this discussion right now. But it's good to see that this thing is coming to light, and hopefully we won't be in a position like this in the future. So before we jump into something, that we should have this healthy discussion and finances and so forth before we get started. People keep forgetting that NRPI held two hats in this game, one as a creditor and one as a landowner. Okay, so when they bought Van Camp, they bought the notes or the phase bond at what I've heard at a considerable discount. So I think that they can take a real close haircut shaving in this process. Talking about the foreclosure fees, if you take a look at your purchase agreement, your purchase procedures, in there it says the Board of Supervisors shall receive all bids or proposals for negotiation of any purchase of materials, supplies, or service in excess of $10,000. I think this is a big money item. I think I've always felt that this thing should have been put out for bid long time ago before we started discussing it today. And I hope that in the future, when we have these foreclosures, that we put them up for bid. Thank you.
Thank you, Rusty.
Jim Steele, resident. Just a couple of little small questions to John and the board. Does anybody know who Alumni Incorporated LLC really is?
Yes.
Are they local?
No.
Okay.
You might want to expand on that. Excuse me, Jim. You might want to expand on that. It's family trust, isn't it?
Appears to be a family trust. All the partners or all the corporate officers have the same last name and the same mailing address, which is a residence.
If memory serves me correct, they have been buying tax certificates since January very, very heavily. Not only here, but Leisure Lake, Orange Blossom. Now, when they do that, do they have to pay the ad valorem taxes at the time of the tax certificate? They do not have to pay the assessment. Do they own federal taxes on anything?
I don't know.
So we would be probably second in line to get paid our assessment. Ad valorem tax would be first, the county tax, and then what?
Our taxes constitute a lien against the property.
Right.
That has to be paid before we get clear title.
But who would get paid first? The county?
It doesn't matter who gets paid first.
But they have to pay them both at the same time?
They have to pay them both to get clear title. Not necessarily at the same time, but
and Mr. Wright is right. They are buying tons and tons and tons of lots and property in Highlands County, particularly here. And if you read the News Sun every Friday, and particularly on Sunday, it's loaded in there with Alumni Incorporated LLC. And I think it's very odd that Mr. Wright is the only one who has ever been able to answer my question on who they are. And I have asked two people on the board, and they didn't have any idea who they were.
Well, you
Thank you.
Is that it for public discussion? Bring it back to the board then. Any further comments from the board? Any comments relating to sole source versus bidding this thing out?
I think that's something we ought to look at, because if we're looking at $680,000 now in the future, I think something we really ought to look at, and nothing against Mr. McClure, but it's only for the fact that we're obligated anything over $10,000 to send out for bid. But let's see how the next month or two plays out with alumni. And the question is whether the board, any members of the board, know who alumni is. All I really think the question is, it's an LLC, and LLCs, you go online, you can find out who the principals are, treasurer, and that's about it. You know, it doesn't get down into the real nitty-gritty of who the participants are. But if they're willing to shell out $73,000 for 16 lots and a number of additional money for the next coming sale, it appears that they have some money somewhere. I don't know if there's anything illegal about it or where they get the money. It's not really up to us to decide that, but just take in consideration one lot on Savona for $7,722 that was owed to the county. We're owed $29,500, so that lot sits right now at about $38,000 that they paid for it. So if they're willing to put out that kind of money, they must have the best crystal ball around, and there's nothing you can do about stopping them from buying them here.
Actually, I think they put out probably over $500,000 because they've actually paid for the purchase certificates on 110 properties in the district.
Right.
But they've only 14 have come to tax deed sale, but you've got another 75 or 80 coming up in the next 45 days.
Right. Ray McGuire spent a lot more than that. Look what happened with them. There's no guarantees here. We'll have to end up with another lawsuit from somebody else.
But McGuire hasn't filed for any tax deed within the district. He's filed for them all over the county.
Well, the upside is we have a good chance of getting some assessment money, right?
I'm optimistic.
These people have bought the tax certificates. They haven't applied for the deed yet, have they?
He got 14 deeds.
They have actually 14 deeds here, so they own those properties.
Right.
As far as the legal fees and bidding, go ahead and do that, okay? But I suspect that Mr. McClure already has a process in place with the people, and I'd be very surprised if somebody went on their bidding. If you feel that we should do that, let's do it.
But do we stop what we're doing now?
I wouldn't think so.
Because I have to package together something.
I like to see a more clear-cut plan as how we're going to proceed, laid out without having to search through the thing and lay out the costs. And I think we can. They still got to be understandable about we can only afford to do so much in such a certain length of time. You know, and if we work within our budgetary numbers, I don't see any problem with Mr. McClure doing it or anybody else doing it. I mean, just to try to find out what it would cost once we know how many we got and in what manner we're going to do it, then it never hurts to get another price.
I understand. You got to recognize there are variables we don't know. For example, on the demand letters, John says 10%. I think it will be more than that, where we don't have to foreclose, where they actually give us the land back, but we still have to do several $100s worth of work. We make sure the title's good, that type of thing, before we record the deeds. So those are the cases where you may be out of pocket only a few $100s. You've got another, I'm hoping 50 or 60 that are going to be with alumni, and they pay. You We've got roughly 20 that are out of the country.
Michael, if you want a bidding process, if you want to compare costs, okay, all you have to do is say, we have 500 lots that we want to foreclose on. What's it going to cost us? Put that out for bid, see what you get. John, I mean, some of those costs, as a matter of fact, the majority of that cost is fixed. Because you have to pay lawyers to do other things, and you have to go to the courts and so on. Some of those costs are fixed, but that's what you need to do. You say, okay, we have a block of lots we want to foreclose on. How much is it going to cost? What would you do it for? Because otherwise, I mean, you're going to be chasing the ghost here, trying to figure out how many lots we have.
Well, we're going to have to give.
We're not committed, okay? If somebody makes a bid, we're not committed to take it. All we're asking for is a price.
I understand. But it's not as simple as saying, give me the price of foreclosing on 400 lots. It's not that simple. They're going to come in and say, okay, what have you done today? Where are they? What are the issues? Nobody's going to bid that out of nobody I want to do business with is going to bid it until they investigate it and see where we stand.
Isn't that true of any
I'm saying it's not as simple as just saying, we have 400 lots, how much do we charge for?
Well, we have a block of lots and we haven't started anything on it, except we identified them. Is that true?
Oh, that's very true.
Yeah.
We do. Okay. Then we need to identify those lots and say, pick 250 of them and say, how much is it going to cost to do this? Can we do that, John? Would you be able to bid on something like that?
I want to make sure the board is clear on this, okay? If you're asking me, would I submit a bid? Sure, I would submit a flat rate bid, and this would not be for consideration for multiple lots owned by the same person or anything. This is it.
Exactly. And that's what you're going to get from everybody else.
Apples to apples, okay? Because I know already from my years of experience, I'm going to have a lot of extra costs that are involved with things like not being able to serve defendants and how we're going to get these people and how to get clear title. All that's got to be in there. And so the only way to do that is get a flat rate per lot.
Yeah, and everybody else has to do the same thing, right?
That's true, but what you're going to find is if you get a foreclosure mill bidding on all this, and I don't care, I mean, it saves the district money, great, but they're going to get in over their heads immediately because they don't know all the problems the district has, and there's going to be an ugly sight. They're going to be calling me, wanting me to, what do we do now? How do we do this? You know,
well, you might make yourself some serious money, John.
Sir?
You might make yourself some serious money.
And I might.
Through the back door.
I might make more money by giving it to somebody else.
That's right.
Yeah, but we can't.
Well, I think we can. I think we can proceed. We got a budget. We got a budget that we have. As long as we live within the budget constraints we got now, I think that would cover getting these demand letters out and getting this SAGON process started. And we're going to set a budget for next year. And we might have this discussion again about how much we're going to spend on this.
I'm in favor of staying with John, okay? He knows the process. He knows the problems that we have here. I'm not sure anybody else can come in here and bid and give us an honest bid. We may end up with a real mess. That's all I'm saying. Okay? But if the board insists that we should have bids, then that's the way we need to do it. Package a number of lots and say, okay, how much would you take to do this?
Yeah, but right now you don't know what lots you're going to package. Okay,
We know what the lots are there. We know what we have.
You've got 600 lots. You haven't even wondered back with anything from the bank saying this is the way we want to go. These are the lots we want to pick. Like John said, if you get a lot with a house on it,
then let's leave it alone. Let John do it. I'm not the one that brought up, bidding these things. I don't understand.
I didn't say you didn't bring it up. I didn't say you did.
All right, please, gentlemen. Well, we have money left in the budget. We have some lots, John, that are in various stages of foreclosure. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And then, as Frank said, farther down the road, there are some lots that we can package and consider in our next fiscal year. Is that correct?
Correct.
So why don't we do that? I think, Frank, in answer to your question, I think we should explore the options.
No question, okay, but we start arguing how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that.
No. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
Okay, so they'll bring this. We might be, but we'll never know, will we? So I assume that you'll bring it back in lieu of next year in terms of what we're facing regarding packaging lots for bid, right? And John, in the meantime, will continue within, as Dave says, within our budget to move the process forward. And I would like to hear face to face from Fifth Third about all this too. You know, I know you guys are trusted intermediaries, but I've said to you, Mike, several times that I'm more than willing to sit down with them to discuss that, and we're ready at that point. So, anyway, it'll be clear on then what we're going to do. Okay, John, do you have anything else?
End of report.
End of what?
End of report.
End of report. John, I got one more thing to say. It looks to me like if Fifth Third is going to take a haircut, Phase 5 is going to take a haircut, so we'll really be pushing hard for everybody and the district to get together and try to come up with some sort of a program by which how much of a haircut you're going to take. You know, I think it's time for this.
I believe, sir, the bottom line is that Fifth Third Bank was saying, look, we got to move forward, show progress to the board up here. Let's get moving on these Fifth Third assessments only, Unit 16 only, and then we're going to work with Phase 5 as we work through these other things. So they're not interested in trying to push things through today, making a bad deal for the bank, and being in a bad position. That's why they're buying time with this Unit 16 assessment only, and then they'll add into Phase 5 as you get closer to it. I believe that's the circumstance.
Mike?
No, sir, I have nothing.
You had in the last meeting, which was a month ago, you were going to bring back the retention pond situation in Dollar Store.
It's still in progress. We haven't concluded anything yet. Actually, we have. The Dollar Store has to go back in and do more remedial work to the site before I can bring it to the board. It hasn't been our level of satisfaction yet. We've met with them this week.
Are we meeting our schedule in the community center?
So far, I think we'll be in it. I know we'll be in it in July. I hope to be in it early July.
Nothing else?
No, sir. I've kept y'all informed on the bidding for all the other aspects, and we'll keep you so informed in the future.
So we have no unfinished business. Under new business, I've asked for a discussion on the rezoning of the area around the clubhouse, which I call, for lack of a better term, the town center. And when I say town center, I think people have visions of high-rise facilities here and industrial parks and so forth. Basically, what I wanted to bring to the board was the fact that our resort program really is not underway. And that was tagged, I think, by Supervisor Halbig and others, that was one of the principal vehicles that we could introduce to increase our exposure, the exposure of Sun Lake to people coming down, and also help to keep reducing the subsidy that we pay to the golf operation. And what I have in mind is a rezoning. Right now, our property out here, and I think it's, Mike, would you say about 27 acres? That's zone agriculture, which means that we are restricted from doing anything with this property, basically, without a rezoning. And the rezoning process in the county takes a number of months. My thinking in this is if we rezone ahead of time, and when the market does turn, we can entertain the development of golf villas on a modest basis in this particular area, and really get our resort program kicked off. So that's what I had in mind. And Mike has raised the counter issue. If we rezone this time, we might be paying more tax. Is that right? On that property? Do you know how much more?
No, that's right. So we're talking the property appraiser.
So the idea of town center is not a town center, but it's simply the development over time and as the market supports it, because we do not have an entrepreneurship interest in this other than we have the land, would be to develop a golf villa program that hopefully would be a major attraction to people coming to Sun Lake or being exposed to Sun Lake in the future. So with that, I'll entertain any comments from the board.
That's a hell of an idea, Dick. I've been saying that for 10 years, and people look at me and say, what's in it for you? I think that's a great idea, but my idea would be to put up, say, a 25 or 30 room hotel unit and bring the packages in here. We keep everything here. We keep the golf, the food, everything. Where now we're getting our business in hotels. The golf villas will be expensive, where motel units would be relatively inexpensive.
Well, now wait a minute. I'm going on the Spring Lake model. Have you been over to Spring Lake?
Yes, I have. But those units are expensive to put up.
Well, we're not putting them up. The private sector is going to put those up. I'm not suggesting that we get into the golf villa business. I'm suggesting that we position ourselves with a rezoning and perhaps at best a concept plan to where these might be, and let the market forces take place, because it won't be next year. It may not be the year after that. But certainly I'm not advocating, I want to make that very clear, I'm not advocating any financial involvement of any kind on the part of the district in this. It's just like in Sun Lake, or in Spring Lake. It's a private venture, and they had 300 villas at one time. They did very, very well.
Yeah, but right now they're empty. It's a good idea. There's no question about it. It's a good idea. I would like to see it the other way, because we get everything back. Instead of giving the business to somebody else, we get it all. And, the tax situation, the ad valorem taxes, right now we get a special rate because most of the properties here, I think, zoned as recreational.
Agriculture. That's right in here, yeah.
Even the area across the lake?
No, the area across the lake is R3.
See, my consideration, Frank, on that is, in my experience, the rezoning process takes a long time. And I wouldn't like, if some developer says, gee, I'd like to do this, I wouldn't want them sitting around 6 to 8 months while we're trying to get that area rezoned. Mike, Mike, what's the average? How soon can we get rezoning?
Probably take you 90 days.
90 days. Well, that's a fair price. Well, then,
90 to 120.
Then I might be premature.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. It's just that if we do this and our taxes go up, I can just hear the screaming. Okay, that's the only thing.
That's the reason not to do it.
Dick, you know me, I look forward, okay? I never look backwards. As far as I'm concerned, if there's an opportunity for us, let's do it. So, and I've been talking about units, hotel units here for quite a while, because I think it would really be a good thing for us to have. If we decide to have villas, that's okay too. I don't have a problem with that. But I would like us to have a stake in it rather than have somebody else make all the money.
Well, we'll make the assessment. We'll also be attracting people to the community. I'm more than satisfied with that, frankly.
Yeah, the program
we should not be in
the program that we had before. Well, that's a matter for discussion. The program we had before, that's how I came here. Okay, there were a number of villas that were available. Now, Christy's tried to get some villas. She's got 2, right? She's got 2 units. There is no program. So if 6 people want to come here, we can't come.
That's the point I'm trying to make. Is every time we talk about getting local units available, including I have a unit as well, most people are wanting 6 months or a year. I mean, they're looking for long-term rentals. So that part's not working. And I know Dave feels as strongly as I do about this resort program. And you certainly.
That's fine. I mean, we need to do something because we have land here and we have opportunities to make some money off off the golf course and restaurants.
Yeah, but the private sector is going to have to take care of that.
That's fine.
I'm just talking about let's be thinking and positioning ourselves.
I don't have a problem with that. I do not have a problem with that. I think we should prepare ourselves.
Would we have to plat this out to get the rezoning? No. We have to identify the rezoning area. You just identify. In other words, you wouldn't have to plat it out in individual sections. Oh, no. You have a specific boundary. And the key to that is have enough area rezoned so that you can cluster these villas on specific portions of that area, because we would go Mike probably to an R3, which would limit development in this area to residential, but that is, what is that, 12 units an acre? Up to 30. So as long as we average in the whole area, we'd be okay. I think it's a good idea too, but you're probably going to have to get a partner with someone to come up with the money to do it. I know I even talked to Kitson at one point in time about, what if we just give you this property and you build some villas in here, and as you sell it, then you would pay us for the property. I mean, there's several ways of going about it, but I do think it's a good idea to set it aside for that purpose, whether we do it or whether somebody else does it. I think it's a good idea. Do we get an idea what our taxes would be?
Oh, I can find out, because we own R3 land already. It's just a matter of me digging it out. But I just know when we go from an ag designation, which is what we're talking about, to an R3, you're going to pay more. But I can probably calculate something.
Well, yeah, if it's more than insignificant, then we're probably pretty true.
I don't think it'd be that much.
There's another one, Frank. There goes another one. Move over there. Move over by the screen.
By the screen. It's a sense of the check for White House.
What is the sense? Right
above his head. Right there. Yeah.
Right.
Just a couple of things here.
Outside, right?
If we go to the rezoning and we go to an R3, we get 30 units per acre, are we looking to lease this property? Are we going to buy it? I mean, if we build it, we're going to lease it out, have a management group come in? That's one of the questions.
Well, let me answer that.
Okay.
What I'm thinking is that we offer the land and we offer the clubhouse as an amenity and the attraction of the golf and so forth, and that's all we do. The rest of it is private sector. And our return is people visiting this community and hopefully liking what they see and staying here. And secondly, there'll be assessment money and there'll be golf memberships. Because in the Spring Lake model, Frank, is when these people, purchase their villa and then turn it over to management, it's also a golf membership involved in that cost.
That's what we used to do here. The golf membership went with the villa, and when you came, the golf was supposedly free, but it actually, if you walked in off the street, you paid $2 more. We paid a cart fee of $20 per round, and I thought it was a hell of a bargain because I knew what I was paying before. And eventually, a lot of these people ended up buying. We're one of them. I think there's a lot of other people here that came on that basis. So it's a good idea. There's no question about it.
Yeah, if you read Christie's reports, practically all the people that are buying here in the last 3 months have cited family, friends, and golf as the reason they're here. So that tells you that they've had some exposure to Sun Lake, and this program that I'm hoping will get off the ground certainly within, say, 3 years or so will really jumpstart that effort again. Because you're right, we had a strong program, very strong.
Do you think what you're thinking on the changing the restriction right now, the rezoning? You want to do it right away? You want to do it a year from now? You want to do it when the market increases a little bit? Because if we do it right away, we're going to be paying more taxes on it right away.
Well, that would be a deterrent. That would definitely be a deterrent.
I'm not against the idea. I think that if we have a management group that, like you said, takes care of the resort area, takes care of the restaurant, takes care of everything, then we just collect the fee, or we get some money back from the assessment. And the other thing is, have there been any agreements from the people that bought these condos on the other side of Edgewater that were told that you buy this unit and nothing will ever be built in front of you?
Well,
I'm hearing stories about that's how these units were losing.
That came up a couple of years ago. There's nothing legally in evidence that was the case. However, I don't envision golf fields going on the other side of that ditch and impeding that view of the lake. I'm talking about the fingers that we have here, and the tennis courts come into play because of phase 3 over there, but I'm not talking about blocking people's view of the lake. If you just look out there behind you, you see what a nice view we have this morning.
Oh, it's a beautiful view. There's no doubt about that. But if you think about putting it where I was under the impression you were talking about putting it out there,
no,
in front of the buildings.
We have fingers of development potential between our fairways here. We have vacant land over there that doesn't impede, so we have a lot of options.
Okay. The land in front of the villas that we own is already zoned R3.
Oh, okay. So
the ag zoning stops right about where Edgewater makes a 90-degree turn.
Okay.
And it comes back around to our property line.
When you buy a piece of property from a real estate company, what do they tell you? Whatever they need to sell you the property. There's no way in the world that if you buy a unit on the other side of Edgewater, they can stop people from building on this side. Eventually, there's going to be buildings there. I don't know what's going to be in our lifetime, but eventually that area is going to be built up. It's extremely valuable property. And you have villas across the way that probably originally sold for about $50,000, and they're going to limit what you can build on that land? I don't think so.
That's our property right now.
That's right. That belongs to the district.
That's fine. But I'm just saying, I've been worried that when these units were sold, they were guaranteed that nothing will ever impede your view. You'll be set for life.
Yeah, it was a verbal guarantee. And we had a meeting 2 or 3 years ago when we had a regular parade of those people coming in and say, we were told this, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. That property belongs to the district. And it's a high-value property.
Well, certainly in stages, we don't have to disturb it all. We got that area right across Sun Lake. That's another option for phase 2. But we could put, you'd be surprised how many villas we could put in here along these fingers and so forth.
They may not happen in our lifetime, but eventually those properties are going to be built out.
I tell you what, if somebody would come in here and say they want to build villas along that Edgewater on this side of the road, I'd say, come on, let's do it. You know, the circumstances alter cases. Just because somebody said, hey, they promised me that nothing ever be in front of me, I don't think that works. I really don't, unless you show me the piece of paper where we agreed to that. I don't think so.
Well, the problem is that the real estate people tell you anything. So just ways that I know.
Mike, you said 90 days. How sure are you of that?
As I said, 90 to 120. It will depend on the timing, the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board, the schedule of the County Commission, getting it through the staff. I don't see it as a complicated rezoning because there's R3 that surrounds all the property anyway. So I think it's a fairly simple rezoning. It just takes time to go through the process.
Can we, at least at this stage, calculate the appropriate boundaries?
Sure.
And can we then put a cost to us once the rezoning took place? Because if it's at all significant, then I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I don't think it would be that significant. But yeah, we get a feel for it.
All right. Comments from the public on this. We're not going to get into the whole philosophy. No, go ahead, Pat. Come on. We're not getting into the philosophical discussion, but we are just talking about the rezoning.
It's not a subject at hand, so.
Oh. Okay, we'll have public discussion.
I think your idea is correct. My name is Rick Holden. But
I think what the board should do is put together a committee of some of the residents, the board members, and Michael to sit down and look at what we've got, where we could do it, what our best options would be, and then report back to the board.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think then you're going to get feedback from the community, as along with just everybody just going off the deep end. And let's do it in stages and get it set up and say, hey, here's we could do this, and this with this area, and maybe we can even get some people to come in and give us a price on, hey, if you gave us this area or set up this area as an R3, this is the kind of villa we could put in here, and this is what it would cost.
Well, that's why I think it's important to make sure it's a private sector situation, because then the market will generate.
That's what I'm talking about, private sector, but have a committee that would research all of this and put it all together.
That makes sense. We could do that, Mike, right? We have time. The nice thing is we have time. Because nothing's going to happen.
It isn't going to happen tomorrow.
Well, let's see what Mike can put together.
If the zoning is not effective until January, then on December 31st, the designation was ag, and that's when your taxes are set. January 1, I'm sorry. It's 5 days.
Rick makes a good point. I think we ought to get some people together and just look at it. Okay. We have no committee reports. Pat, public discussion.
Pat and Jimmy, resident. I have 2 comments to make. I'd like to remind the entire board that upon taking this office, that there was a fiduciary oath that was taken by each of you to represent the residents here to the best of your ability as far as spending our money. So I feel very strongly that a bid process should be issued for the foreclosures based on our restriction of a $10,000 limit. We've seen this bypass in the past by previous members and our previous general manager, and I would like to see that halted. So that's my comment on that. And my comment to Mr. McClure, if you could update us on the Mr. Severino situation, I would appreciate that.
I'm not involved.
Well then, Mr. Wright, if you could do that.
Based on my latest conversation with the sheriff's office, he's awaiting trial.
Thank you.
I didn't hear that, Mike. What did you say?
He's awaiting trial.
Any other public comment?
Yes. I'd like to know a couple of things. First of all, what's the status on our independent audit?
Our independent audit?
Yes, the audit we're looking into having. What is the status? You said Tanya, and then you were setting up.
Yeah, let me respond to that. There were 6 points that I sent over to staff, I guess 3 months ago.
Right.
And basically, 4 of those 6 points are able to be handled in-house. In fact, some actions have already been taken. A 5th one was NRPI, which is responding to the recommendations in the risk assessment report, and we had set a deadline, Tanya, of the end of this month for that scope of work, and I'll ask you now, are we on schedule for that?
For the end of the month?
Yes.
I have a scope of work lined out. I don't know that we'll have the request for certain bids.
No. I mean, just.
What is the tentative deadline we're looking at?
Are we talking about the independent? Are we talking about the external audit with the auditors from
Oh, that, I thought you were talking about the other audit situation.
About the independent audit.
Oh, you never revising your, I'm sorry, misunderstood you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm working on a scope of basically of what you and I discussed regarding that independent audit for the NRP.
Okay, and what's the time frame we're looking at?
We're looking at the end of June for that. But I will not be here at the June 24th meeting to discuss that. So, Mr. Mueller and I can meet at another date. We can talk about that or wait until July 4th meeting.
Well, I don't think we should wait on finishing up what we want to do and how we want to proceed. And then we can discuss it in an appropriate board meeting. It might be a little bit after June, but certainly I hope we'll stick to the end of June deadline for your work from that standpoint.
And like always, I like to get it to the board well in advance of any discussions you may have.
The other thing I'd like to ask is I've received a copy of your purchasing procedures. How long has that been in existence? The purchasing procedures? I received a copy. Do you know, Mr. Wright? Have they been here for eons or?
Been here a long time.
Long time? Okay, so they were here in place before you showed up?
Yes.
Okay. Another question. Who is our purchasing agent?
We don't have a designated purchasing agent, do we? Like we all do it. We're so small, we don't have that designation.
Well, in Part B of the procedure says the purchasing agent will prepare the legal notice requirement, instructions, and so forth. And in the other part, it gives a specific duty as to that person what they would do if a certain amount falls within certain guidelines. So I'm kind of curious as who was this person?
Well, by default, it would be me. But we don't have anybody designated. You are the purchasing agent. We're not big enough to have that.
Okay. I just thought that'd be interesting. It would be nice to know. Because they're in charge of when we secure 3 quotes from an item that sends out for an item that is falls in between $1,000 to $5,000, and it says receive quotes. How are you receiving quotes?
Verbally or in writing, usually in writing. Sometimes we can't get 3 quotes, and we get less than 3 to get the type of work's picked up.
Okay. All right. Okay. Let me ask you this. If you have an order that comes in, and let's say you have an item that costs $15,000 and the order was split, say $7,500 one and $7,500 the other, or say to keep it in the other one $7,500, to keep it under the $10,000 ruling, is there anything to stop a person from going around those parameters?
Just ethics.
Yeah, case law.
Yeah.
A lot of case law about that.
We don't split deals.
Okay.
To get by that, we don't do that. Like we've had that very discussion at our staff meetings. We don't do it. Knowingly do it.
Okay. I think that needs to be addressed and put in the writing or something so that they make sure that this doesn't happen, because I think it has occurred in the past. Okay? I think what it's showing me is that there are a lot of procedures and so forth that needs to be addressed, and it should be looked into as quickly as possible. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rusty. Do we have any other comment? Public comment? Bring it back to the board for any points you want to make?
Yeah, the purchasing agent. I suspect that when something has to be purchased, that you use it, whoever the individual has knowledge of that particular subject would be the purchasing agent. So you utilize the people that actually have to use it, the equipment, or have to purchase it. And that's probably using efficiency rather than hiring another head and paying another salary.
Right, and if there's any issue that's complicated or if there's any question, we discuss it in-house.
Yeah, as long as you don't overload the people, because I think we're running on a skinny staff right now. So.
May I say something here on that? I'm just trying to pinpoint it down as to who's responsible possibility it is, so that if we do have a problem, we can go to that person and address that problem.
Well, the buck stops right over there. Okay, I've got a couple of things. One, Mike, I appreciate you sending this opinion from Mr. McClure on when I inquired about Mr. Severino. The civil penalties are pretty extreme when somebody writes a bad check. It could mean payment of that check plus 3 times the payment of that check, plus a 5% surcharge, plus attorney fees. And I think it would be appropriate for us to start civil action against this gentleman for writing those checks. I mean, there's people. I think the only way some of these people are going to get reimbursed. I mean, if these checks have to be made good, they have to be made good in the order in which they were written. And I believe that at least those 13 people would be made clean. But you can't do that. You just can't do that. And I don't understand why the guy did it. Nobody knows why he did it, but there's penalties for doing it. So I think it would be appropriate for us to start a civil action against the gentleman. It's $210,000. Not a drop in the bucket. I know it's going to be split up, but let me ask a question in that regard. We're obviously the victims of the bad checks, but we have a limited. I'm not going against what you're proposing, but we have a limited participation in those amounts from the standpoint that specifically only the assessments relate to us. Is that correct? The rest is passed through, or where are we on that?
Don't hold me to the exact number, but the O&M assessments, our share, probably less than 20% of the total amount. The majority of the money would go to the bondholders as us, the collection agent.
Well, in concert with Dave's question, if we decided to take civil action, would we be, and John, this might be a question for you, would we be correct in pursuing the entire amount?
Yes. I would like to make clear, as I did, I think, in the email that I sent, that several things would apply. Number one, while you may well get a judgment for 3 times the amount, plus the check, plus attorney's fees, plus 5% service charge. That's what you get. And I cannot tell you how many countless clients I've represented who have to show for their efforts a piece of paper. Because collecting that judgment is always the issue. How you collect the judgment is the question. And it may be that there are properties outside of Highlands County that are owned as well that can be attached. I've not done that type of search. But I would simply point out that, number one, if there are no other assets, and for like you said, for whatever reason he wrote that check, I have no idea what's going on. But the bottom line is, if they allege economic hardship before the court, and all the statutory damages are out the window, meaning that while you can still get the amount of the check as a judgment, and you can still get your attorney's fees in the judgment, you would not be able to get the statutory remedies of triple the amount of the check or the 5% service charge. So I'm just saying you could spend all that money and they allege economic hardship and you're just left with the judgment for the check. And that, again, you spend attorney's fees and all you got is a piece of paper. I don't want to make light of that, because it would seem to me if someone were faced with jail or paying it off, I'm going to pay it off. And it has payment's not been forthcoming. I can only presume that there are no assets there, but I don't know that. So I want to make sure that the board, before we move forward, whatever you do, is I'm okay with doing that. But you need to understand the pros and cons of authorization to proceed.
Can I make a comment? those checks were to pay the full amount of the bonds, both Phase 5 and Fifth Third, okay, the actual encumbrance on those properties. The districts was really not harmed, okay, because I think in most cases the assessments were paid anyways. I don't understand what happened, why it happened, but we were not harmed. Why would we want to spend money on a lawsuit?
Well, we were harmed.
Why?
We're harmed legally.
How
There
were
was
we harmed?
assessment money that was paid. Some of those people had paid, a few of them, most had not. And I should mention for everybody involved, as far as the criminal side of this thing, the district has done everything that is required to do in terms of moving that process along. Is that correct, Mike? Because I've been in contact with the sheriff's office, and they've assured me that the district has. So from that standpoint,
Well, that's the legal side of it, okay? It has nothing to do with us. But as far as those properties are concerned, okay, these properties were owned by individuals who gave an amount of money to settle the Phase 5 and Fifth Third amounts, okay? He was supposed to try to negotiate these down. That was the whole idea. He comes in with these checks and he pays the whole amount. He paid everything, including the assessments. I don't understand why. I don't know why he did that. He certainly didn't harm the district. Now, I don't know about the other people, but I imagine that most of these people, they're not deadbeats. They paid the assessments themselves. So why were we harmed?
well, we were harmed. We are officially designated victims. And John, you want to speak to that?
The statute I'm referring to, 68.065, simply means if you issue the check, the district makes a demand, it is not made good in 30 days, you're there. There is no requirement for showing harm. There's another statute, 772.11, the civil theft statute, that does have a requirement to show harm. And Mr. Wright and I have had this discussion that with respect to a demonstration of harm, it would be more difficult to show that because we haven't lost our lien on the property. In other words, nothing has changed from the fact that the check was tendered regarding our lien. If it's unpaid, our lien is reinstated. So the actual harm suffered by the district probably isn't there. And so, but all that means is we would not proceed under 772. There is no requirement for showing harm under 68065. Making that clear. Number two, with respect to harm, the harm would really be not to us, but to the individuals that actually gave the money to Mr. Severino for whatever purpose, and have not gotten their money back. Now, no question, those people have been harmed. They're out some. And so, I don't know if that addresses your question or not, but I would point out 68065, the dishonored check statute, does not require demonstration of harm to require treble damages, whereas 77211, the civil theft statute, does require that.
But the process is working through the courts now.
The criminal side.
Okay, but what about if he's found guilty? Does he have to pay that money back?
Well, again, if he's found guilty and serves time in jail and whatever, that's a crime against society.
Okay. In other words, for us if we want to get the 4-time punishment, whatever the hell it is, we would have to file our own grievance?
Yes. We have to make our own separate demand letter. And after 30 days pass without restitution, the right of action then vests. And we would then proceed under the civil course of action to collect the check and the damages. And we would be entitled to a judgment. And the judgment's good for 20 years. That would exist for whatever the total damages would be.
I think we should go ahead and do that, file that document, the demand letter.
30-day notice letter.
I mean, that's to start it.
What are the statute of limitations? What are the statute of limitations on this?
Well, it's either going to be 4 or 5 years.
Okay, then let's not rush to judgment. If you want your pound of flesh, you chase it yourself, okay?
I think the thing to do, given the way the board is talking, is make a motion. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And we'll know how to proceed.
I make a motion that we follow the demand letter and see what happens with the demand letter.
Second.
Discussion on that?
Discussion or public discussion?
Board discussion at this point.
Okay. All my feelings are that the letters, the checks were written. There wasn't any money to cover the checks. This sets a precedent to other individuals that live in the community. Say, I can send a bad check. I don't have to pay my assessments because other people aren't paying theirs. I think that a lot of agencies are going to get involved in this. And it's not just Highland County Sheriff's Department. So I think we have to put out a notice out there that says, you know what, we're not going to tolerate this. I could see if there's a couple $1,000, maybe we can get some leeway on that. But when it gets over $211,000, that is really beyond comprehension. What this reminds me is if all of a sudden you decide to, for some unforeseen notice, there's an idea that you're going to go down and rob Highland Bank on Monday, and then you have a change your heart Monday night, say, I think I'm going to Tuesday morning and give the money back to Winnie, because I really made a mistake. Do you think the bank is going to stand for that? Do you think the sheriff is going to stand for that? You can't do that. This is white-collar crime, and there are a number of government agencies that are going to get involved in this. The U.S. Marshals, Drug Enforcement, Security Exchange Commission, U.S. Immigration, U.S. Customs, U.S. Secret Service, Internal Revenue, Postal, and a ton of other people. So this isn't going to go away. But unless we do something, there's an opportunity for someone to just skirt the issue again.
John, what would be the first step?
First step, in my opinion, is determining the amount of the demand. And I say that because the $200,000 was issued. The district has, in fact, received some payment from some of the individuals represented by that to be applied against their amount. So, I think it would be inappropriate for us to claim loss for that. So the amount we would claim would actually be different from the amount of the check. And once we determine that, then it's just simply there's a statutory notice. It's right in the statute that says you make it just like this.
How is that determined? Is that for you and Mike to determine?
Well, we've got records of payments. We did a calculation for the attorney 3 weeks ago as to the amount that was still outstanding that had not been paid.
This would be the amount that we would ask for in a civil action, is that correct?
Yes.
And you know that amount?
Well, we do across the street.
Okay, well, I think we need to know that.
Right. And then just simply writing the letter in accordance with the statutory notice and making the demand, having it certified, delivered, etc., and then waiting the 30 days to see what happens.
Well, I would simply remind both of you that a year ago we passed on a similar issue on the check with the same gentleman that we asked for, I think it was $1,900 and some back, and that was ignored for quite some time, and then the board voted to forget about it. So I haven't forgotten that situation.
Are you accusing us of?
No, John. Easy. I'm just reminding everybody that we had that situation with the same individual a while back. I'm going to open it up, just a minute. I'm going to open up the public discussion, then we'll bring it back to the board. Before we go, do you want to come?
If you check those numbers, okay, you go in there and check the numbers, what the district actually benefits from that is probably less than $20,000. That's what we get. So proceed with vigor, okay, and go for the throat.
Okay, public discussion. Who's first?
I think the board has overlooked the fact of what John McClure said.
Speak up, please.
I am.
All right. I think the board is overlooking what Mr. McClure said earlier. We can get a judgment and spend all this money on that judgment, and all you're going to have is a piece of paper. Unless unless we have to go after him out of the county or out of the state to get the money, we're only chasing. And I think what we need to do is just let the court handle things and find out what's happening. We got the statute of limitations of, you said 5 years, I believe, right?
Either 4 or 5. I didn't.
We can find out. Let's give it 6 months, see what happens. Before we start spending money for an attorneys and chasing after something that all we're going to get is a judgment from the court, maybe. It says, oh, you owe the district $19,000, pay it.
Rick, the motion on the table is for a first step. It's not for a process. Okay?
First step is to file a...
No, the first step is determine what's involved in regards to that, and then what? A demand letter?
I thought what was on the table was whether or not to send a demand letter.
Well, that's the first step, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's a simple process.
We got to pay for the demand.
Which we've done before with the same individual, is that correct?
We did send a demand letter for the $1,900, but it wasn't based on insufficient funds. It was another issue.
No, I realize that, but we're dealing with the same person.
I'm just saying, I know everybody would like to do what they can right away, but I think we ought to just kind of relax a little bit here. Let's see what happens in the court over the next 30, 60 days. I believe he's coming up in June or July for a hearing on this. Find out what happened. At that time, the judge may come out and say, hey, you want this?
My understanding is there's a plea date, is that correct, for the 27th of June? Am I correct? That it's pleading, not a trial.
Well,
arraignment, I guess. Is it called arraignment, John?
Maybe he'll plead and I'll pay it.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
A little time.
Thank you.
I think that what we need here is a second opinion. Okay? I think John's a little bit too close to the tree to see the forest here. I think we need to have a second opinion, take a look at the assets question and see what you want to go from here. Keep in mind, we've done this procedure before, but we had some people that failed. Thank you.
Rusty, just by way of information, it's Mr. President, not Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
We're not at the county level.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, President.
Right.
Tom Costley, resident.
I have two things that I'd like you to keep in mind.
I believe the date of the checks was March 30th or March 31st. Having been the victim of several bankruptcies in my business, not mine, but those of my customers in the past, I know there's a 90-day statute. I believe it's a national, although it may have been an Illinois
statute, federal, although it may have been an Illinois statute, but if a bankruptcy occurs, the courts have the ability to go back and get any monies that have been dispersed by the person declaring bankruptcy or the entity declaring bankruptcy, and have that money returned to be split up among the entire group of similar creditors. We're very closely approaching, I think, the 90-day limit on if, for instance, a bankruptcy were to be declared before, after that 90 days has occurred, any monies that were dispersed would be free and clear. I mean, nobody would have to pay those back. Now, I have no way of knowing whether or not that may have occurred here, but if monies were spent and provided by Mr. Severino to creditors, that money being that received from the people that got burned on this deal, it would be hard to get your hands on that money after the 90 days, and we're rapidly approaching that. The other thing I'd just like you to recall, we were talking about the district having to show damages. You might recall that about a year and a half ago, or perhaps somewhat around that time, the district did file a civil suit against the county on behalf of landowners that they thought would have been damaged, in spite of the fact that the district had determined that they could not show any damages. When we were looking at the change in the voting statute from 1 lot, 1 vote to 1 acre, 1 vote. And both Mr. Severino and Mr. Guglielmi did vote in favor of going ahead with that lawsuit on behalf of the landowners. And I would consider the district going ahead, as Mr. Helbig has suggested, and act on the part of the district to support the people that did get damaged by these checks. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, you can. We know your situation.
My name is Ruth Hill. I'm a resident. Mr. Severino served on that board, and he was presenting himself as a leader. And that should have been an example for the rest of us. If you don't go after him, you're serving a precedent for each and every one of us that are residents here when it comes time to pay our assessments to write you a bad check. And then see, where would the district be then? You can't just let someone else go off and go easy. He knew what he had to do. He knew what his obligations were. And he knew if he needed more time, that he should have came in like a man and asked for it. Not write no bad check to think that you're going to write it off. It doesn't make sense for the rest of us.
Ms. Hill, I couldn't ever imagine you writing a bad check.
I'm just as human as anybody else.
I'm sorry.
If you're going to let him off, why not let me off?
Well, okay, thank you very much, Phil.
Fair's fair, that's all I say.
Yes, ma'am.
Kathy Jimmy, resident.
I 20,000, just like you need mine.
I feel that the district has been harmed. We've worked very hard on this last year to not have adverse publicity publicized in the newspapers, and this was publicized on the front page for 2 days in a row. So I really feel that there was harm done in the sense that we're trying to change the public image of Southern Lake. We were in the newspapers so much with the previous general manager and things that have gone wrong. I think that the board has done an outstanding job in this last year to rectify that, and I feel that that was another disgrace on us that could have been avoided. And also, if my understanding that Mr. Severino owns several properties there, that I think that if anything comes of this judgment that we can't physically get the cash, that we should at least put a lien against those properties. And I would hope that his real estate license is affected by this situation. And I'd like to remind people that he was also found guilty of ethics violation in the past year. So this was the president of the board for a good many years under the guidance of NRPI. Thank you.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. We have a motion on the table. Any further comments on that particular motion?
I never said we shouldn't proceed with this. The only thing that I said is we have statute of limitations. Let's not rush to judgment. The district stands to gain probably less than $20,000. That's all that. Those checks were not written to the district. They were written to the district. That money is a pass-through. Okay? Most of that money was going to the bondholders. So we're not, when you're talking $210,000 or whatever it is, it's not, the district would not get $210,000. They would get about less than $20,000. So why don't you wait until the process plays itself out? And then you can go ahead and file your lawsuit, whatever you want to do. Okay?
Frank, when is it?
It'll resolve itself.
When is enough enough?
I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm saying let the thing go through the courts. Okay? Let the thing go through the courts. Let the system work itself out, and then you can go ahead and do whatever you want to do. And I would be in favor. I will vote for it.
John, let me ask you a question. The checks were written for 13, the relief 13 people of their obligation on the bonds and their assessments. If we would get a judgment, would not those checks have to be distributed in that same manner?
I've never faced. I would have to say I've never been confronted with one exactly like this, but in my opinion, the checks were written to the Southern Lake Receiving Improvement District, and for a specific purpose of application to certain funds. So assuming that the district got a judgment and it was a full treble damages and it was all paid, I mean, best case scenario. The question is, how would those funds be applied? And I think a very good argument could be made that they were tendered for the specific purposes indicated, and once full payment was made for the purposes for which tendered, the remaining balance as damages would be the property of the district, in my opinion. The people that gave money to Mr. Severino, who in turn applied through these checks ostensibly the payoffs, how have they been injured if their liens are fully paid? The answer is they haven't. So, and I think I addressed that in the email. Would the other parties, the bondholders, make claim to the additional amounts that were received by virtue of the treble damages? Maybe, maybe not. I don't see what the basis for the claim would be, because the check was to the district, and the district applied the funds as indicated. So I don't know if that fully addresses your question or not, but if your question is there any way for the district to recover this money and then to apply it to the individuals who paid Mr. Severino the $3,000 or whatever they paid him each? My answer to that would be not legally, because the check was tendered to the district. The district is recouping on behalf of itself and owes no obligation to those individuals. On the other hand, as I indicated in here, if the district doesn't get the money and these people are out their money they paid to Mr. Severino and they don't get a satisfaction of anything here in the district, then I think they have individual rights of action against Mr. Severino.
You mean file their own complaint?
I do, yes. The district would have
civil or criminal or both?
Either, both. I think they have a criminal complaint. If they don't get paid, I think they have a potential complaint for fraud, misrepresentation.
As long as we're on that track, we got 13 separate checks. which are 13 third-degree felonies, and we have one first-degree felony. What happens if a portion of those checks are made good? How does that work for the victims involved, the individuals?
Well, first of all, there's only one victim. That's the district. Period. Right now, unless, as I said, unless the individuals involved were to come forward with a fraud complaint. But the only victim right now is the district.
Yeah, but that really doesn't answer my question. Let's say that let's say an action is taken. Well, okay, you got 13 potential victims, if you want to say that, become victims when they file a complaint. What if 3 of those victims file and 10 don't? Does that mean that the 3 step to the head of the line, or what?
I think if the 3 filed, are you talking about filed as victims for a criminal complaint?
Yeah, that would be first.
If they filed as victims for a criminal complaint, then that would require a separate restitution of those victims by Mr. Severino. The question, though, is would that then require the district to make a commensurate reduction in what is owed based on the money flowing to them? Like I said, it's complicated. I've never had one quite this way. I don't know that answer. Would they step to the head of the line? They would be the ones entitled, if there is recoupment, because they made the complaint, then they would be the ones entitled to the reimbursement. Those who do not actually make a complaint would have no entitlement to reimbursement. So typically, one nice thing about the criminal system is that to avoid conviction, to avoid potential jail time, to avoid having a criminal record, most people would cough up the money if they possibly have access to it to avoid that. And it is this restitution of the victim thing that is a very important aspect of whether to proceed forward or working out a plea or whatever ends up as the ultimate resolution. So there's a lot of leverage, I'll call it, to get your money back through that system.
Yeah, I don't consider us the only injured party. We've got 13 others, and I understand behind those there's a whole bunch of other people that are involved in a non-legal way at this point in time, but we've got to consider those people.
Well, I understand.
I know we can't officially, but we certainly can recognize that.
Well, we all recognize that, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I guess we're ready to vote. Jane, you want to call the roll?
Supervisor Halleck?
Yes.
Supervisor Guglielmi?
No.
Supervisor Gamgeni?
Yes.
And President Miller?
Yes. Do we have any further discussion on any other topics from the board?
Just a couple things. I'm glad everyone is in this room, and we can see that if we had the ability, I'll talk to Kim O'Neill. Kim O'Neill spoke to me earlier this week when they were setting this up regarding hooking up the TVs that are behind the portraits here, so we can use this as a business conference center versus using a screen pull down. And he told me it would be approximately about $1,000. I'm sorry, okay, in the vicinity of some money. What I'd like to see, if there's any money that left over from the construction account, if we can have someone that is doing the community center, just have them come over and take a look and explore the possibility of setting this up as a business conference or a meeting room. I think that would enhance our ability to offer this up.
You mean over there?
No, here.
No, over here. These two TVs here are not synchronized. We're getting synchronized galvanized a TV over there in lieu of the screen.
Yeah, but we do the wiring over there. I won't have to come over here and see what they can do.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, as far as some warning stripes on the front of the building when the steppers, there's nothing there yet. Can we put something up temporarily so as people walk out they can see there is a difference in height going from the sidewalk to the street? Now we're working on the lighting in the parking structure. And also, we able to record, to generate a report of individuals or entities that are paying county taxes but are not paying our O&M? Is there some way we can do that without going to major?
Let me find out. I do know, as I've reported to the board, that we are going to start targeting improved properties literally the first working day in July that have not paid assessments down. Some have paid county tax. I know just in my spot check of certain units, I noticed some have paid county taxes, some have not. I don't know if we can do that, but I'll find out.
Okay. And also, when you're sending out the demand letters, we're sending them out to the lenders, mortgage companies, and we've spoken before on sending the letters to the credit reporting bureaus. Can we do that?
I asked that question of a tax attorney, Mr. Bill Katko, who is with Lewis, Hallman & Walker, who's got an advanced degree in taxation. I'll read the answer to you. Okay, I'm sorry. I missed it.
This is sending out a notice to the credit reporting bureau.
Here's my answer to that. I would think no, and I think no solely because it's not a personal obligation of the debtor. It is an in-rem action only, meaning that our only remedy is against the property. We cannot receive a judgment against the debtor for failure to pay the money. It's not a personal obligation. So in other words, if you have MasterCard and you charge something up, that means that it's your personal obligation. If you have go to the bank and get a loan and mortgage on your house, that's a personal obligation. But as a district, by buying property here is subject to the lien of the district, but it's not a personal obligation to pay. All you're subject to is loss of the property. There can be no judgment entered against you.
Well, can we include it anyways, just as a save or rattling technique? What's
I would think it is. If we said they owe this money and they haven't paid it, I don't know that they would have a cause of action against us for that. So what you're saying is, should we do it anyway? The answer is, if you're going to do it, go ahead and do it. I don't know that. Could I call the credit bureaus and talk to them about it first? Because I think that's an important aspect of it.
Yeah. Can you do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, that would be good. And see if we could just put a little more leverage on us. I know we've been fairly successful in getting some non-payers to pay up. And do you have a number on that, a figure on that?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
We're kind of waiting for the new numbers, so I'll get it. A lot of people paying here.
Okay. I can't understand why they're paying June. I think we talked about that.
The second notice that we sent out gives them until the end of June. Hey, we'll start taking other actions, but they also pay a penalty.
Okay. And any word on the IRS 1099 funds?
Yes. And the question is, how formal an opinion do you want? I will read to you the email that I received yesterday. It reads as follows. We have reviewed the information provided by you regarding the limitation on actions to collect taxes set forth in Section 95.091 Florida statutes, and that's that 5-year thing, as it relates to Southern Lake Improvement District. We've also reviewed information from the Internal Revenue Service regarding the requirement to submit Form 1099-C in certain cases where debt is canceled. Our review indicates the district is not required to file Form 1099-C when the statute of limitation to collect outstanding taxes set forth in the statute applies. Governmental entities other than federal government agencies, such as the district, are not included in the list promulgated by the IRS of entities which are required to file Form 1099-C. We have not yet undertaken a review of any risks to the district associated with filing Form 1099-C when such filing is not warranted. So if they said we would be happy to provide a more detailed opinion letter if desired, but that's their response to our initial request.
Okay, great. Could you send me a copy of that? And if any of the other board members would like a copy of it? I appreciate it. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. And last, but certainly not least, I too have a lot of regret that you're leaving, Jane. You've been a real help to us in the short time you've been with us. I think your minutes, I think your professionalism shows at every meeting and every conversation that you have with, myself, and I'm sure with the other board members as well as the public. You can have very large shoes. Not saying you have big feet. You have very large shoes to fill when you're gone. And I certainly wish you the best of everything. And I know it wasn't an easy decision to do it. We're going to miss you. Thanks.
Anticlimactic. Mike, have we heard back from Progress Energy regarding our lighting?
Yes. Yesterday afternoon, the gentleman who is our area representative wrote me and said his last day was yesterday. And then he was turning all of our files over to someone else. He also sent me an email that said that was from the design individual who said he would be undertaking the look at I'm talking about our parking lot design, highlighting next week. So, and I also met with some Progress Energy people yesterday who were looking for a new substation site, and they agreed to help me kind of push that through the system. The other problem we've got is I got to relocate a transformer that is in the new parking lot. So all those things together. Now, Ms. Wolf and I have been working on the lighting for the driveway, if you will, and the sidewalk.
Well, before we get into that, I was going to ask about that. What about the lighting for the neighborhoods?
That's the guy that retired yesterday, or went on extended medical leave yesterday. He basically has been on vacation for several weeks, and then yesterday he went on medical leave. I have his replacement who starts next week, and he and I'll be talking.
Well, aren't we in a pipeline of some kind?
All I can tell you is the individual who is assigned to our district, how can I say this tactfully? He's gone, and he's been on vacation for some time.
I understand they're changing their name to Progress Less Energy.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you understand there's a number of us that get calls from time to time implying that we're not doing our thing regarding the lighting.
I will do what I can with the new individual, and hopefully I can spur them along. The last individual was really not that responsive.
Okay. The other lighting?
Rather than go with Progress Energy for the driveway lighting, because the only type of lighting they have for that type, it stays on all night. It's basically, it's got these sensors and it comes on and stays on. Plus it's very expensive. It's almost $50 a light per month for those real decorative lights. So we've been talking to companies that do that type of lighting, and Ms. Wolf and I talked last night, and we're going to be shipping you out early next week what we think will work, and try to get some feedback from the board.
Okay, parking lot?
No, not parking lot.
No, I'm saying what about the parking lot?
That's the one where I mentioned a minute ago, the designer, I got an email from him from Progress. He's a private sector guy.
I'm talking about the paving of the new parking lot next to the clubhouse.
Sent y'all an email on that a couple of weeks ago. It is the Water Management District is reviewing our stormwater permit modification. We don't think it'll be a problem. Without going into all the details, we hope to open bids end of July.
Assuming
I can get the transformer moved as well.
When are we going to start working on the budget?
We'll have a draft to you within a couple of weeks.
Okay, have you talked to Paulson about this hit list, so to speak, so we have some idea where we might allocate some of these?
It will be the capital improvement budget that you'll receive.
Okay. That's all I've got.
John, you don't have to wait until next meeting in order to answer Dave's questions. If you just, when you finish that, shoot us copies of that.
That was my understanding, to get it away right away. That's what you
Right, okay, very good. Right. Okay, meeting adjourned.
Gee, we literally got that this morning.
6.7 last night.
Hey, John, I need you to email me that so I can get it to the shop. And then we got